It's that time of year again. Mid-season report card time, and we've got together to run rule over the Celtic squad pretty much almost nearly halfway through the season. I'm your host, Jamie, and I'm joined by Melly.
Yes.
And Stephen.
It's parents' night.
It's Celtic parents' night. We like to do this. And look, sometimes we have a bit of trouble coming up with how we're going to put these players into tiers, but this time around we've got some help from some old Celtic managers, so I thought we would reach back and think, how would Celtic managers of present and past put these players into tiers? And they've
in their words. It's in their words, yeah. We've gone to the masters here. So
for the very, very top,
yes,
anyone that we think is the top of the class, we've gone for astonishingly brilliant.
Yes, Martin O'Neill's famous phrase where he described a game as, or a performance rather, as astonishingly brilliant.
Back Juventus, was it?
Was it? Yeah.
I think it may have been the Juventus game. Someone's kind of not quite top of the class, but they are a right good teammate. Can anyone guess the manager?
That's Gordon. That's a favourite of ours. That's a famous podcast catchphrase as well.
People's kids put through private school and grandkids put through private school and houses and cars and Ferraris all bought only because they were a right good teammate.
a right good teammate. So to expand on that is, as you say, below the very elite performance of the season. So it could be someone who has performed very, very well, but what we're looking for in astonishingly brilliant is the four players maximum who have driven this Celtic team forward this season. So everyone who's been good just under that is a right good teammate in this category. Yeah.
And one down from that, we're being really harsh here. There's only 4 categories. One down from that is bitterly disappointing, Martin Melly.
Can he beat it?
There you go.
Yeah, so who's that?
Neil Francis?
Well, that's Neil Lennon. And that's if we've had, you know, expectations of somebody and they've let us down. In many ways, that might be the worst. You don't want to be bitterly disappointing for anyone. And the final category, Terminado.
Brodge.
I feel like we're on the. I feel like at points, you know, what's today's date? We should let the listeners know when this was recorded.
Yeah, so we're in mid-December at the moment. Yeah, so yeah.
So we know people will watch this at some other point.
Yeah,
and, you know, don't batter us around the head if by the time you watch this, Brendan's left because he didn't get his January players in, or we say someone's Terminado and they score 8 goals in a game. Just give us a little leeway on it.
Yeah.
But I feel the way that the transfer window talk has gone lately and how disappointed Brendan's been with some of the transfer business, that Terminado, I feel like it might be on the cards again, you know?
Yeah, well, Terminado, of course, is... Well, that was...
When he shot a warning to the board, he said, if I don't get the players I want, I'm not backed here anymore, then that's the end for me. So Terminado.
Referring to himself in his position as Celtic manager, he said potentially Terminado. So how we're using it tonight is... gone, right, out, get them out of this club. Terminado is bitterly disappointing as it says on the tin, but can mean a number of things. It might mean that they haven't played as much as we might have expected. It might mean that they haven't been given a chance, but Terminado is no arguments here. They have to go.
Gone.
Things up.
It's funny, that was his own words, his own phrase. Came back to the same board and expected something different.
I know, you're like, the same thing's happening. I don't know what they told him in summer, but listen.
Jesse Pinkman meme, they can't keep getting away with this.
Right, so in order to get the names, I thought it'd be a bit boring to just run through the list in alphabetical order or in squad list number as a list on the Celtic website, or even numerical squad number order, because that's exactly what you'd be expecting us to do. No, what I did was I fed them into the AI supercomputer and it spat out the names in a random order. So, first up, Greg Taylor.
Oh, right, what a start then. So, Greg Taylor, I think, has been... bitterly disappointing.
Oh, it's bitterly disappointing.
I'm trying to make it as part of just the performances this season. I'm trying to not say things like, oh, but he contributed to our treble. He was brilliant under Ange.
Yeah, this season only. Yeah, mid-season report card.
We're sitting here. No doubt. People will have seen us trying to do a tier list before. We tend to break our own gimmick within about 10 players and we just start making excuses and throwing them all over the place. But as we embark on this journey, we're going to try and keep it to purely just about this season. And I don't think there's any other way to frame it than Greg Taylor has been bitterly disappointing. I think he has fallen off a cliff in terms of his own performance. Might be reasons for that. There might be positional and tactical reasons for it. But the end result is Greg Taylor has been bitterly disappointing for me.
I mean, I've got to say, Melly, I was going to call him a right good teammate, but Stephen, you know, he's charmed me with that.
No, I think he's possibly the Alton Towers of this, the biggest disappointment this season. He's bitterly disappointed.
I kind of wish we called a tier Alton Towers and left it so esoteric that people are like, why the fuck they calling a player Alton Towers?
No, I can't disagree with Stephen. I think coming into the start of the season, we all thought, look, that's a position we need to improve on. We haven't done that, so Greg Taylor has played pretty much every minute so far and not had very many good games. He's not looked the Greg Taylor of last season at all. Needs to change.
How much do you put that down to Greg Taylor? How much do you put it down to the new role the managers ask him to play?
50-50, I think, because if you're going to be a left back and the only way you can play is inverted, no many teams that do that, and it's just come around. So I think it's got to be a bit of both. I think Greg Taylor's got to do a lot better, because the thing that's bitterly disappointed me the most is his passing this season.
So many times we're going to be saying that tonight.
His passing this season has been abysmal for me. He's taking the easy option, or he's putting his teammates under pressure, and that's something I couldn't say about him last season.
The thing about it, Stephen, is people can make, they can make reasons, they can make excuses for Greg Taylor, saying, well, he was really good under Ange because Ange had him playing inverted, and this new way where he maybe needs to be a more traditional fullback, he's not as good, and maybe Celtic will eventually replace him with a traditional fullback. But the thing that gets me is, but Greg Taylor is a fullback, and he always was a fullback, and the things that Celtic seemingly asking him to do aren't that difficult. Now, it could be the case, and I've often wondered this, if Maeda did a lot of protecting for Greg Taylor. Maeda closing people down, not letting those attacks get started, doing a lot of shielding, doing a lot of protecting for Greg Taylor. And now he's having to do it. Stephen, you're smirking here. I feel like you're cocking a line here.
I immediately just thought of Lewis Palma trying to do the same. It's nothing like it, is it? Absolutely nothing like
Greg
it.
Taylor's getting rained on every single week, and he's back to what we saw sort of pre-Ange, sort of pre-Maeda. So I think, okay, but bitterly disappointing.
Yeah.
We'll stick Greg Taylor. He goes in first into bitterly disappointing. James McCarthy. Right, let me go
Surprised
first.
He's in there.
Let me go first.
What a start.
Right, you've only got two options here, right? He's either Terminado, right, or he's right good teammate, because he's certainly he's not even at training anymore.
No.
So he's Terminado. It has to be Terminado.
Yes.
It's Terminado.
There's absolutely no debate about it. Terminado, he will not make a single appearance this season. How many did he make last season? Even just 1 or 2, 4 maybe at the maximum. So no, James McCarthy is the ultimate Terminado in this. I mean, bitterly disappointing 3 seasons ago, but not now. He's absolutely Terminado.
It's quite funny, Melly, because Brendan did say in the summer that he was gone, but he did conducted an interview in which he said James McCarthy, he grew up a Celtic fan, he was a good player, I knew James, but unfortunately his time here's been hampered by injury, and he'll probably move on. Fast forward nearly 6 months and the guy's still here. I mean, he doesn't show up for training, he wasn't even in the squad photo, which I thought was pretty mad. I mean, he's at the club, they should presumably have a jersey that fits him. Just stick a jersey on and stick him there.
Jersey that fits him. He's still a different shape to him.
That's what I mean, just get him in the photo.
It's a shame, because when he came in you thought, this is the kind of signing we could do with here. Thought it was going to be great, but it's just no worked out, and we all looked at him and went, 4-year deal? That is mental. But I can just imagine Brendan in the summer, how you always, when you go back to somebody, you had one job. Brendan's go back, you had 2 jobs: bring in good players and get rid of crap ones. You've done it, and you've done it. And James McCarthy sort of epitomises that. But I don't think he's ever done anything wrong. It's not as if when he's played he's been terrible. He can't play. So I think for him, for a guy that's missed so much football, just go and play football, mate. It's just one of these transfers that's not worked out.
I think James McCarthy is likely to retire after he leaves Celtic.
Next season's the one.
You
mark my words. Next season he's going to turn it all around.
Because if he plays a few decent games, there'll be calls for a new contract.
So what is it? He's got a year and a half left as we record this. What a piece of business that was. That's incredible.
Does he sneak into the right good teammate then? Because he's getting the Ferrari, he's getting
the reason I was going to say he's a right good teammate was because I was going to make the argument that he must be doing something, because we've not just paid him off. He must be good for morale. He must be making a right good cup of tea for Brendan. He must, I don't know, bring Brendan his slippers in the morning. I don't know, he must be doing something. But as I would travel down that thought process, I remembered that he doesn't even show up for training anymore.
What does his day look like these days, James McCarthy? Who knows?
He's probably, I don't know, I'm not even going to speculate in case I get myself in trouble. Listen, the first Terminado of the video. Next up, Gustav Lagerbielke.
Oh, right. Well, that's, I suppose, a complicated one, because
I think there'll be a lot of that tonight.
Yeah,
first summer signing of this, signed from Elfsborg in the summer.
It's a strange case this season, because he sort of bookended the Champions League group stage. He started it off by having a disaster against Feyenoord, and then wrote himself into history with that last minute, or the 91st minute winner against Feyenoord in the last group stage game to finally get that win. in between, it's been a lot of kind of nothing. I don't think I can make a case for anything other than bitterly disappointing. No, it's not necessarily his fault, but he was signed, didn't play much, thrown straight in less than great circumstances. I think he was kind of thrown in at the deep end when ideally you would probably want a guy like that to be gradually getting more and more experience, probably alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers. He wasn't really given the opportunity to do that. Now, he played against Scales, who's gone on to be very good. That was how he started. But ideally, you want him alongside your better defenders so he can adapt to the Scottish game, all that sort of stuff. He didn't get the opportunity and fell completely away. Don't think I can make a case for anything other than bitterly disappointing, because he's a relatively high-profile signing. He looks like a young player, but isn't really. Was he 23, 24 maybe? Should be more established by now, so he hasn't done that, so can't really say any other category.
£3 million, Melly. I mean, for that sort of money, you're looking for him to start more games than this.
Yeah, I thought it was a decent signing when he first came in. He looked all right as well. Few things he had to learn, but he just fell off a cliff since then. Not involved in squads for a while, and then comes back and manages to be the hero. So bitterly disappointed, but I think maybe now that things start to settle down from January onwards, Phillips will be away and him and NAWROCKI will be able to fight it out, hopefully, and try and get back in the squad. So still got hopes for him, but bitterly disappointed so far.
I think he's one of the players that's definitely not for today. And this is the sort of thing, even Brendan Rodgers spoke about it in a recent press conference. Says, look, we brought in a lot of players, some of them not for today. They need to adjust to the new environment, the new leagues. I think he's being kind there, because the amount of players...
Celtic, stop buying 23-year-olds not for today.
Well, that's
They're
it.
5 years into their career.
How can you play how can you buy a 23-year-old for $3 million and say he's not for today? We have spent that money and we've bought players in of that age who have just started playing right away. So I feel there's a bit of like protecting the player a wee bit there.
This is a discussion for another time. I won't bog us down too much in this,
thanks.
because
So,
we've got a duty to perform here, but you look at the likes of the Champions League, and I think we've got a really odd and probably unique view of young developing project players in Scotland, because you look even at the Champions League and all the big clubs are littered with teenagers. Teenagers are playing left and right, and we're talking about 23-year-olds as if they're...
Well, Brendan Rodgers
Player of the year in his own
Brendan
country.
Rodgers himself in 1 week says that, you know, LAGERBIELKE has got to adjust. He's maybe a player for tomorrow. All this sort of stuff he's talking about, these players. He also said when you bring in 20-year-olds, they need to adjust. How many did we actually sign 20-year-olds? But 1 week ago, he's talking about how Mikey Johnson, no, he's not a young player, he's 24. So
Yeah.
by Brendan Rodgers' own logic, I'm able to deduce that if you pay £3 million for the Swedish Defender of the Year and he's 23 years old and he comes over, you'd expect him to play a bit more than he has. And
Yeah.
you can make the excuses all you want, but that's it. I think he's bitterly disappointing.
Yeah, no arguments here.
It's going to be a long one, this.
Well, I think it is, but it's not our fault.
No.
Next up, though, we could break that trend with Liam Scales.
Right, well, he is at the very, very least, right good teammate. There's no denying it. I mean, look, the surprise package of the season, there's no arguing against the fact that he has been an extraordinary success for this Celtic team so far. Now, we all have our reservations about where he can possibly go. At the age of 25, fits in nicely with the discussion we've just had. 25, he's not likely to get all that much better, but he's been brilliant this season, to be honest. I don't want to be churlish about it. I have said on a few occasions that I don't really want to give him a new contract, because I don't think we'll need Liam Scales at 28, 29. I don't think that's the right thing to do. But as far as this season goes, he's been excellent, and he's dug us out a couple of holes. He has performed very, very well in Europe. So he's at the very least a right good teammate. He's a right good teammate. Right good teammate for me. I couldn't say astonishingly brilliant, because he has a ceiling, and I don't mean to sort of diminish his achievements this season, but I think he's definitely in the top performers that we've had so far this season, just not the very top level.
Listen to me here, right? Everybody knows how I feel on Liam Scales, right? And my opinion on Liam Scales is based on everything I know from Liam Scales, okay? But if we are going to stick true to what the purpose of this podcast is, and it's to judge players on this, right? We were talking about LAGERBIELKE a minute ago. What would you be saying about LAGERBIELKE if he'd performed the way Scales is performing today? Would you be saying astonishingly brilliant? Some of the man of the match performances, left, right, and centre. Some of the performances in Europe. It's look, I'm not defending Liam Scales because I've got the brainworms that I'm Johnny Hazifying the guy, but I'm saying that we are looking at it this year and we're going, this season only, if that was LAGERBIELKE we were talking about, man of the match in the Champions League,
At
thrown in,
Ibrox as well.
Ibrox as
Yeah.
well, throwing his body on line, doing absolutely everything. We'd be saying, do you know what? For £3 million, that's a good piece of business. And compared to how everyone else is performing in this group so far, trust me, I don't want to say it, but I think you've got to call Liam Scales astonishingly brilliant.
Wow.
I think you have to, based on the performances this season, compared to his teammates, and what crucially, if that was Lagerbielke performing that way, I don't think we'd be saying anything other than that.
No, you're right.
Aye.
So I'm going
Is this the first charm of the?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with right good teammate for now. But I'm open to be swayed one way or other, to be charmed.
Right, if what we're doing is we're putting it down to this season.
Yes.
It's not your past. It's not how we think you're going to do the rest of the season. Has he been astonishingly brilliant this season? And for Liam Scales, yes, he has. He has for me. And everyone knows I am not a fan. I don't think he should be playing long term. But Liam Scales would have been Terminado if we'd have done this at the start of the season. Terminado, he's came in, he's performed well. I still think there's massive flaws in his game. But for Liam Scales, he has been absolutely brilliant.
He's the only player I think we're going to discuss today that I would think is astonishingly brilliant, but also get him out Sharon.
But drop him as soon as you can.
Drop him the first chance you get.
Look, I think you're right to make that case, and I think that I hold my hands up to having done with Liam Scales what I have fought back against for other players. So I've defended other players based on what I have done to Liam Scales, which is total hypocrisy. So I spent 2 years defending Starfelt because I felt that his ropey start just coloured his reputation going forward for a lot of people, and a lot of people just wouldn't let it go. I'm doing the same thing for Liam Scales. I still see Liam Scales as the guy who came in as a pointless signing, went out on loan, and never expected to see him again. So I should let that go, to be honest, and he has been brilliant this season. I'm sticking with right good teammate, but I can't have an argument against it, rather.
So this is the mid-season, but when we do this at the end of the season, he's not going to be one of the elite players that we call upon every week, is it? It's just this season. It's
performances. It's performance-based. And that's it, because we know what Liam Scales is as a player, and we kind of think, well, that's a position that could be improved upon. But in the class of 23-24, halfway through, I think he's astonishingly brilliant. And Stephen, you're allowed just to vote, but I think Melee.
Astonishingly brilliant, eh?
Played every Champions League game as well, from memory. Yeah. Every Champions League game, man of the match at Ibrox. Yeah, I think he's all right, to be honest. Yeah, no fight here.
Benjamin Siegrist, Terminado.
yeah, not a debate. Stick him right in there.
Does this happen at any other club where you sign players? Now, there might be extenuating circumstances, but I don't care. But is this happening like any other club you think, if you sign a player up and they just never play, you just never see them, we just pay them, I don't know, like astonishing amounts of money just to kick about?
I think a goalkeeper's a bit of a different situation sometimes, isn't it? Because Joe Hart's always going to be number one, and it's sort of, there was a time where you'd have your cup goalkeeper, but a lot of teams are sort of moving away from that now, and Joe Hart just plays for Celtic by the time, well, not this season, but if Celtic win a couple of rounds in the cup, it's a semi-final, so you're going to keep in a guy. So Siegrist came in, things happened in his personal life possibly, but it's just no worked out. I don't think we were ever going to see much of him. Terminado, man, he's got a new agent and everything, so
see you later.
The goalkeeper thing is unusual. It is a specialist position, and all the cliches that go with that. But Siegrist was the guy who was brought in to at least somewhat challenge Joe Hart, and he hasn't even challenged Scott Bain. So, and for that reason, he's even more of a disappointment than was expected, because Scott Bain was the guy we've had for years. We fully expected him to go. He got a new contract, and Siegrist is nowhere to be seen. So he is a bit of a disappointment, and you can't even rate him on this season, because I can't remember the last appearance Siegrist made at all.
Terminado.
Yeah.
Another sign of the summer, Martin Melee, Bernardo, Benfica on loan, option to buy for 5.5 million. Seems ambitious now.
Well, now that we're out of the Champions League, he'll probably not get much game time. No. He seems to play those games, but doesn't play in the league. I like the idea of Bernardo. I think, a guy from Benfica, midfielder, this should be good. But I've liked the idea of Massimo Donati, Yuri Jarosik, and it's just no worked out. And to be honest, look, Champions League, he's done okay, but the bread and butter's playing in Scotland, and for a signing like that, to splash out money on him, nah. So Terminado, even if it was to come to it, if Celtic get to January now and think, do you know what, we could probably have a break in this clause, I'd probably just say Terminado, mate.
And the thing about it is, Stephen, midfield has seen Hatate injured for a lot of the season. That's opened up a third midfield berth for anyone that wants it. And at the beginning of the season, looking across all your midfield options, the smart money probably would have been on the $5.5 million loanee Benfica player who's played for Benfica's first team. He's played
in
a
the
lot
Champions League as well.
He's played a lot of football for them. He comes in here, he looked like a bit of a coup for us. But he's not really held it down, as Melly said. He's playing in the odd Champions League game. He's obviously got a very particular set of skills. I think Lazio away looked quite good for me, but everything else, he's looked very middle of the road. And I think these comparisons between Jarosik and Donati are bang on, really.
Yeah, it was something I'd mentioned after a game that he reminded me of Donati, in that all I could say about Bernardo is that he is a midfielder. Legally, technically, he is a midfielder because that's the area of the pitch he operates in.
Just gets the ball and passes it backwards
a
lot of the time.
I just can't identify his strengths, his standout attributes. I can't really see it. The best thing you could say about Bernardo is he's tidy. It's just
the idea of Paulo Bernardo is good. Cool name, comes from Benfica, plays for Portugal under 21s regularly, and that is a great team. Yet when you see him play, like, I don't really know what you do, mate. Matt O'Reilly's a sort of box to box, so you don't do that. You're not a holding midfielder. You're not attacking midfielder. You're just in there.
Yeah. So it's not his fault. I think he's a good enough player, but for the reasons of his reputation.
Is he? But where's the evidence for that?
Well, he has performed okay on. I think his reputation.
He's never been honking. No, he's come on for us, but he's just very.
Yeah, that's it. I think he's probably a technically proficient player. We just haven't really seen much of it. And when he comes with a reputation, probably unfairly granted based on the similar trajectory career of Jota, right? So it's very easy for us to do those maths in our head. Benfica product. So he comes in, we do those calculations in our head and we expect something of a player. But he's not really done anything, to be honest. He's just been okay.
Is he bitterly disappointing or is he Terminado?
Well,
because I don't see any need to immediately get rid of the guy.
No,
which is Terminado, get him out the door. Don't really see. I would probably put him bitterly disappointing rather than Terminado.
I think so. I think he's been bitterly disappointing based on those, just on the fact that he's been slightly disappointing. Yeah.
Do you know what? You've charmed me there because I still like the idea of him. Yeah. So give him to the end of the season and see how he gets on. He might come back.
If we buy him for £5.5 million, I'll give you the money myself.
Yeah.
Next up, Anthony Ralston, winner of and actually namer of our Anthony Ralston Award for Unexpected Excellence that we give out every year at our end of season awards.
The inaugural winner. Who would have seen him winning the first ever Tony Ralston Award for Unexpected Excellence?
Not me.
A stitch up.
For me, Tony Ralston is the epitome of a right good teammate. Maybe he's not been bitterly disappointing because I don't expect any more from Anthony Ralston than we've got. I don't think he's great. I never did think he was great. He's a Celtic youth product. Do you know how you know he's a Celtic youth product? Because he runs weird. He even has got a weird running gait like everything that comes out of that academy. But I think Terminado, he's a backup right back.
Aye.
The problem is, Stephen, we've had this conversation before. The problem with backup is sometimes backup needs to play, and quite often when backup plays, it's not good enough.
Yeah.
But I don't see him going anywhere. He's another Celtic lifer. So yeah,
he's one of those guys who sort of exists outside of any of these categories, isn't he? He's not a guy you would desperately want rid of, but nor has he really contributed anything. He just comes in the odd time, doesn't look particularly out of place, but nor does he stand out. So bitterly disappointing is very harsh, but I suppose that does encompass quite a lot of things. He doesn't necessarily have to have disappointed in terms of his contribution. He might just have disappointed in terms of what he's been able to do. Anthony, I said Anthony Johnston there. Alistair, mixed the two of them up. Alistair Johnston there. What a player you would have if you could blend the two.
No, you'd make Johnson worse.
Made both of them worse. So Alistair Johnston has been injured a little bit. Anthony Ralston has come in and played on occasion, but he's not even really a right good teammate either. He's hovering in between those. But I'm just going to go bitterly disappointing because it seems very harsh, but he doesn't play. He doesn't really challenge for the position, and that's a very loose thing to say about it, but I can't really think of anything else.
I'll go right good teammate, not because I'm an avid defender of Anthony Ralston, but where do we go with this? He's not going to leave. He's not going to play much. There's certain guys who are going to be there because they're there. They need to be there. So no done too much brilliant. No done too much wrong. Good guy to have about, right good teammate for me.
That's what I mean by a lifer. You know, he's just one of these guys that's probably going to see his career out at Celtic. I think in an ideal world you would have a better right back to back him up, to back up AJ, but then a better right back. You know, where does, I suppose my question would be, where does a right back fit in between the talent level of Ralston and AJ that won't want to play every week?
Yeah.
You know, the more closer to AJ you get, they might, you know, you sort of.
I think the position's mystifying, to be honest. It's another discussion for another time. I keep doing this, but it's like, I don't know why Anthony Ralston has been given such a long-term contract at Celtic. I do know why, but it doesn't really make sense because Alistair Johnston is about the same age as him and the two of them are sort of aging together. Why isn't there a 19-year-old behind Alistair Johnston rather than...
19-year-old has to play, but...
The problem with that is we probably do have a 19-year-old. West Ham probably scooped him up at the age of 14.
So we're going to have Anthony Ralston at 29 being the backup right back to someone who's brought in at 22. It just seems all very strange the way it's worked, but it's not his fault.
It's almost a uniquely Celtic thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've just got, well, or is it? The clubs tend to have these sort of lifers that hang about the club and new guys come in all the time, but they're just always there until they're completely useless. Is that a thing in football? I feel like Man U have done that a few times.
Yeah.
Phil Jones. It's Anthony Ralston or Phil Jones.
Well, he's fitter than Phil Jones.
Yeah.
So where are we putting him? Where are we putting him? It's so tough for me.
I'm right good teammate.
I'm going to start a bit like disappointing. I'm stabbing you in the back. I've got you. I'm sorry. Steve has charmed me. The more I think about it, is it disappointing to have Anthony Ralston at Celtic? Has he ever? But
it's not at Celtic. It's this season.
Has he been disappointing this season? No, because I never expected him to play in the first place. So, but I don't want rid of him because you need a backup right back. So,
I would get rid of him, to be honest, because I don't think he's very good as a
I get rid of you,
right?
So you get rid
Ideally,
of him.
I know we're all saying this, he's a lifer, you know, he's finer in the place, but I would get rid of him.
So in an ideal world, if there was a good right back playing for, say, St Mirren at 20 odds, you would get rid of Anthony Ralston and bring him in.
Aye, I think that's how it should work, rather than having these guys aging up to like their late 20s and just floating around.
I think I need to toss a coin on this one. I don't have any money on me. Unusually, right? I can't decide. What? He's Bittley O'Malley. Have you got a coin there?
She'll do
this is let me feel right. Okay. So heads, he's out. So he's tails. He's a right good teammate. Anthony Ralston, bitterly disappointed.
Oh, he's my money back.
So, next up is Mike NAWROCKI.
Right, well, easy one. It's bitterly disappointing. Not his own fault, right? But he's been injured. But in terms of a big money, big high profile signing, he was supposed to be the new Carl Starfelt. Hasn't been. He's been fit for a long time. Hasn't made it back into the squad after getting injured. He's bitterly disappointing. A straight up bitterly disappointing for me.
Difficult to argue. That 5 odd million can't get Liam Scales out of the team. Can't get in the team when ahead of Nat Phillips on loan.
Oh, it's bad when you put it like that, isn't it? Yeah, bitterly disappointing. Came in, looked as if he just slotted in straight away, got the injury, and it's just no worked out for him. So, bitterly disappointing for me.
I fully expect to see more of him at some point. I think he will establish himself at some point, but as we sit here in the mid-season report card, I can't make a case for him to be anything other than that.
How many centre-halves does Celtic need? 4? 5?
At 4, I think it would be ideal, but we seem to have about 7 or something like that, including Phillips, I suppose. But that will be long term.
If that factors into our thinking a wee bit, because I think we can all agree, like NAWROCKI's probably going to break through. That would be astonishing if Scales kept up his first half season form all the way through the season. If he did, that would just be
Player of the Year material.
Player of the Year material, unbelievable stuff. We might be sitting here at the end of the season, congratulating him on that award. But I just think it's very difficult, Melly, to say anything other than bitterly disappointing for NAWROCKI, just because we needed, when we signed him, we brought him in with the expectation that, as Stephen said, Starfelt was going to move on, NAWROCKI was going to come right back in.
Yeah, and I think with every centre-half we have, like Stephen was saying, I want to see him alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers. That's the fair thing, isn't it, to see him, because he didn't quite get that at the start of the season, did he? And I thought that partnership really could have went well, and I still do. So want to see that at some point. And when you look at our centre-halves we'll maybe keep, you've got him, you've got LAGERBIELKE, Carter-Vickers, Welshy's just signed a new deal. Is it essential to give Liam Scales another 4 or 5 years? Probably not. No. Is he much better than any of them? Probably not. But NAWROCKI, bitterly disappointing, but more to come.
Another summer signing. I wonder if there's a pattern going to emerge of all the summer signings. Just so we make our minds up as we're talking about it here, so it's not like this is predetermined in any way. You mentioned him, Melly. Stephen Welsh.
Stephen Welsh, this is a harsh one as well. I think at the start of the season, he'd signed that new deal. You thought, you know what, he comes in, does a job and goes out. I think he's the epitome of right good teammate, because I don't think I can remember a game where you thought Welsh disaster. So I think he's a right good teammate. Came in out of nowhere in a Champions League game. Thought he'd done really well in it. The whole defence was good against Feyenoord. So right good teammate for me.
Welsh is like Ralston in that he's a sort of not applicable, isn't he? He's like an NA. He's barely played. So I don't think I can put him in right good teammate, because that tier...
was mental from Melly, to be honest.
That tier is intended to be the players who have done well, just not as good as it stands Liam Scales. So given 1 or 2 games or whatever, Stephen Welsh, has he performed up to a good level? Yeah. But
He's been injured when the rest of them.
So I don't... Given the spirit of the right good teammate tier, I don't think I can put him in there. But then bitterly disappointing is extremely harsh. So
that's why we crammed it into 4 tiers for ourselves, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Don't make it easy for you, son.
No. I mean, should we start flinging about Terminados? to even
to be honest, I was kind of on Terminado, because see the way you feel about Anthony Ralston is the way I feel about Stephen Welsh a wee bit. Stephen Welsh has been at Celtic a long time now, and he's never established himself. So do we just keep him about because he's always going to be 4th choice centre half? Is that because that's not really a thing football clubs do, is it? Do they just keep guys about for a long time?
Keep them about, but they train and they perform when they come in. And Stephen Welsh performs when he comes in. He's just been injured. But
he played a lot under the COVID season and before that. He played a lot. I feel like he spent at least one season, the last couple of seasons, he played a fair amount of football. I just thought even then, like when we saw Stephen Welsh play as much football as he was going to play, he was just all right.
So what do you do then? Get rid of him and bring in somebody
what
better?
Age is he?
24.
24 probably.
Well, I mean, that does sway me a little bit. I've got to be honest. He's not a young player. I call it Brendan Rodgers. So what's the season been like for Stephen Welsh?
What happens when you see Stephen Welsh on the team sheet? Are you like utter disaster like when Mikey Johnson?
A single tear rolls down my cheek.
I dropped on my knees and scream, why?
I do this and catch it. Salt in my mouth every time Stephen Welsh plays. Right, okay, bitterly disappointing. I'll have it bitterly disappointing. Right.
Aye, same.
There we go.
Right good teammate's absurd.
Aye.
The right good teammate was not intended to be guys who are just... It's not the literal sense.
Right, are we going to add in another tier that's just okay?
Yeah. Well, we could have had that.
We should have.
That's a good quote,
but unfortunately, we forgot. So we're going to have to shoehorn everyone into extremely difficult tiers. Right, this will be easy, right? I'll make this one easy for you, Stephen. UK Kobayashi.
Forgot about him.
Terminado. He is 100% Terminado, because we've been talking about it already several times. The centre half position is absolutely mental at Celtic now. We've got so many of them. We've brought in so many of them recently. Signed 3 of them in the summer window of this season alone. We have extended the contracts of Stephen Welsh. Cameron Carter-Vickers is still tied down for a long time. Liam Scales has come out of nowhere. Talk about new contract for him. So Yuki Kobayashi finds himself about 7th. Do you know what? He's probably not even about 7th choice centre half, because I think you would play Ralston ahead of him now. I think it would get to the point where you would play Greg Taylor at centre half or something. Such as the
definitely going in January.
Yeah, such as the distance Yuki Kobayashi is from the squad.
Who did guys like us end up at the club? Do we just pick the phone up to an agent and go, see that player Kyogo that you've got in Japan, can we have him please? And the agent goes, yes, but only if you take all this other shite I've got here. Only if you take Kobayashi and Idaguchi, because I represent them as well and I want to get them in the club. Because there seems to be so much of that. Celtic, we're really into ex-Benfica products now. So we've got Jota, that worked out. Bernardo, you need to take him as well. Doesn't he work out? Or linked one ex-Benfica left back now. We'll see how that works out. And when a player comes that's just makes like zero impact. Like Kobayashi just made no impact at all. It's like we just paid someone a lot of money as agent and then paid him a lot of money, and he just, I don't know if he has any expectation really that he's ever going to play. I don't know if he turns up to training every day and thinks, all I need is 7 hamstrings to go. then it's Kobayashi time.
It's just not worked out. That'll be a year he's been here now, hasn't it? You can look at it all you want. Agent stat. Ange signed the guy. He wanted him, didn't he? He'd known him from before. So it's not worked out. Some of these signings aren't going to work out, but stop getting so many of them wrong. Celtic, absolute terminado. Guy needs to go for his own career.
Another one, summer signing. Reports that he's the worst player lots of people have ever seen at Celtic. Well, you do hear that quite often about many players. Talking about KWON, Stephen.
Oh, KWON, goodness me. So, hasn't played at all.
No. Well, he played in a what friendly?
Athletic
James
Club.
Forrest,
So he played in
James
Forest testimonial. So he played against Athletic Club, and it is incredible that people were so scarred by that they basically never want to see KWON ever again. He was so bad in a bounce game, a pre-season friendly, that people were absolutely horrified by it. He's never played for Celtic. I fully expect that he'll never play for Celtic. No. It seems bizarre. Unless he gets a run. Again, we record this before the Bucky Thistle game. Unless he gets a run out in that. But I'd be amazed if he even gets that.
Does he even deserve it?
No, because I think Brendan Rodgers is savvy enough to not just throw guys in that we haven't seen before for the sake of playing. I don't think he would do that. I remember him being really angry when Karamoko got a game in a friendly when he was too young for it. He found out that someone had played him sort of against his wishes, and he was really not that those two things are in any way comparable. But
remember the Karamoko hype? Remember those heady days?
I do, yeah.
On loan at Blackpool now.
Yeah, but not that those two things are in any way comparable. It was a sort of insight into the way Brendan Rodgers thinks about just throwing players in for the sake of it. KWON's terminado. I've spoken about it for too long now, to be honest. There's no doubt about it.
Terminado, that game against Athletic Club was abysmal. It was like...
He kept just leaving the ball, remember? He was like dummying it into his own box.
It's like, right, I know it's a testimonial or something, but has somebody won a competition here that they're getting to play? It was shocking to see that. Right, there's not just one guy signed off on this. Multiple people have signed off on this and thought this is a good idea. For a start, the amount of number sixes or holding midfielders we got is incredible. To bring in another one who's not going to play is unforgivable. I like Stephen, I don't think he'll make a single appearance for Celtic. Terminado, and we're just going to be paying a guy for years.
Unbelievable. I wonder how much money we've paid.
5-year deal, folks. 5. Yeah.
I wonder, every time I think about KWON, I wonder who won that sign strip that Celtic were giving away recently. Yeah, collector's item, that one. Listen, we need some quality, we need some talent to discuss now. How are you feeling about Player of the Year, Matt O'Reilly? That's a stick on.
Is it Matt O'Reilly?
Absolute stick on.
Should have his own bracket, just Matt O'Reilly.
Yeah.
2 in a row there. Matt O'Reilly is every bit as easy to categorise as KWON is. There's no doubt about it.
Polar opposites of the Celtic squad in many ways there.
Astonishingly brilliant. 100%. He has been tremendous this season. Has surpassed his own performance last season, which was very, very good, but it was lacking goals to make him stand out as a true talent, as one of those true sort of not generational talents, but one of those guys who's going to one day probably be elevated to a level that Celtic simply can't keep him down. We've seen them so many times over the years, like Dembele and Tierney and all that. I think he is going to be in that bracket. He's been brilliant this season. Good, really good in the Champions League. Didn't look out of place. We said that about Hatate last season. This season has been Matt O'Reilly's time to shine at that level. He has been excellent. Loads of goals. Player of the season so far by a considerable distance, in my opinion. Astonishingly brilliant.
I think it's of no doubt that Matt O'Reilly's going to break Celtic and Scottish transfer record when he goes. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I find it difficult to get up for things like that now and get excited about those ideas because we don't really do anything meaningful with the money. What we do is we take it and we spend it on the likes of half the players we've discussed today. You know, and you'll see when the graphic goes up, you'll see where they all end up. But Matt O'Reilly's he's the best player. Is he the best player at the club? Honestly, probably the best player at the club right now. Easily the best player in the league. Just a terrific all-round midfielder that seems to be able to do it all. And this season, he's added the crucial element of more goals to his game. I think as we sit here now, 16 appearances, 9 goals, 4 assists for Matt O'Reilly. Really, really strong numbers.
Match winners in there as well. Late winners. He set up the late winner for Lagerbielke that we spoke about earlier in the Champions League.
Set up Kyogo for goals.
Yeah,
in the Champions League.
Of course, yeah.
And he set up the goal for Kyogo Ibrox as well. So every big game this season, he's either scored or assisted in it. So Big Handsome's been the best player, hands down. He could do his own category for him. He's unbelievable this season. Brilliant.
Easy.
Astonishingly
brilliant, as Martin O'Neill would say. Nat Phillips. Honestly, like Brendan loves this guy in training.
Yeah.
So I don't know what Nat Phillips does in training that he can't translate onto a football pitch. I just wonder if Nat Phillips enjoys the training, but when he's faced with the reality of a Ross County or a Livingston or a Kilmarnock, he's just like, what am I doing here?
Well, he's at Liverpool, but he's just at Liverpool. He's not playing. So when it comes to playing games, that's the bit he doesn't do.
Yes.
That's the bit he's not done for years regularly. So
I was at 50 career appearances and he's 26 or something like that.
So do you think maybe what's happened is the standard at Liverpool is so high, right, that even just training at Liverpool, being in that environment and training in the Liverpool first team, elevates you as a professional footballer, elevates you as a professional athlete, elevates you as a trainer. So when you come to Celtic, the training that he's maybe only performing at 80% or 90% of what he would be having to do at Liverpool, but he's doing really well at Celtic. But that doesn't change the fact that he's a shit footballer.
Yeah, well, I think it kind of comes back to what we're talking about. Do teams keep these guys around? Yes, they do.
Yeah, I think we've answered their question about teams keeping dumplings around for absolutely no reason.
I mean, they had another dumpling that we nearly signed and he went to Rangers. Remember him?
Oh,
Davis.
Yeah.
Yeah, they played. I think they played together at Liverpool. So like, these teams keep these guys about. It's not just Celtic who are bad for this. There's every team's got these guys that how they hear and then they'll run down their contract and they'll go, oh, do you know what, just give them a couple of years. So Nat Phillips, Terminado, absolute disaster. Should have and could have been a good stopgap, but he came in, got injured, and it was just disaster from there. And when he plays, like honestly, the only thing Shane Duffy done more wrong is play more games.
Yeah, that's it. Nah, it's absolute Terminado.
Next up, this will be a tricky one, a controversial one here. Leo Abada.
Oh,
right. Well, another one who's had an injury hit season. He's not got going at all. So really, my first instinct is to be bitterly disappointing from his point of view.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. Well, I'm bitterly disappointed. Keep saying that so much. I'm bitterly disappointed that he hasn't been able to play much and hasn't been able to contribute to the level that we know he can. That's mainly injury, but I feel like more and more in Leo Abada's time at Celtic, it has become more of an impact sub. I think people have sort of forgotten that because he's been injured for so long and we're dying to get him back because he adds goals to the team. So I think his first season was amazing and hasn't really lived up to that since. This season, next to nothing really. So it's bitterly disappointing for me, with regret. I don't want to put him in.
Yeah, because it can be bitterly disappointing for us, or it can also be bitterly disappointing for him.
Yeah.
You say, like, it's been a bitterly disappointing season for you, and we're going to say that a lot. I think the thing that struck me about Abada, especially in the summer, was we all know Abada wasn't good enough to start ahead of Jota. And in fact, in many podcasts, it's just like the gap there is massive.
Yeah.
The gap between the Celtic's whole problem right now is the spectrum of talent we've got is far too broad. The players who are great, and when they can't play, the guy that fills in is next to nowhere near good enough. And that was the case with Abada, and he got goals. We don't deny that. He fit into Angie's system and managed to capitalise on coming in at the back post and cropping up with goals and all that sort of stuff. But when he was required to be a winger, he wasn't very good. Jota leaves in the summer, and there was like a sort of calmness about it going, well, we've got Abada. As if by virtue of the fact that Jota left, it made Abada automatically better. And I just don't ever think he was. I don't think, if you disregard the names of what we've got here for these players, just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 being the top and 4. I think Abada's always hovered around 3 and 2 for us. Anytime, even at his absolute best, he was never top of the class for Celtic. So I think for Abada, he's not played a lot of football. I think he's played 4 appearances this season. It's been a bitterly disappointing season so far for him.
Yeah, look, if he was here now, he'd probably be playing, but that doesn't mean we wouldn't be frustrated with him, because that's mainly what happened last season when he played. I think coming towards the end of last season, it was Jota and Maeda, but I still thought we need somebody else in to challenge Maeda and maybe take over Maeda. Jota leaves, Abada pops up, and then even Palma coming in. If you had Maeda, Palma and Abada all fit, it'd be Maeda and Palma for me. So bitterly disappointing for us, bitterly disappointing for him. I think the only thing you can say about Abada is, look, Brendan Rodgers came in, you could maybe see him turn him into that Scott Sinclair type of player, but that really requires somebody on the other side creating, and Palma's probably going to be the Scott Sinclair. So bitterly disappointing. Hopefully he comes back and can contribute, but still want another winger.
There we go. Bitterly disappointing. Here we are. We arrive at the one you've all been waiting for. Drum roll, please. Bernabei.
There's always such tension in the room. You never know what you're going to say.
Flop.
Oh, yeah, miserable.
£4.5 million flop.
Well, yeah, he's Terminado, unfortunately. No, I don't have a problem with Celtic taking these gambles on signings like that, who seem quite exciting on the surface of things, who seem to probably show up as having something about them.
That's a big gamble for us, isn't it?
Yeah, in terms of the outlay, I don't really care about that kind of thing. But just broadly speaking about that type of signing, I don't really have a problem with it usually, because the odd one isn't going to work. It's almost like an Efrain Juarez type signing, isn't it? Very quick. Out of left field, a very unusual signing, because we'd never even signed an Argentinian before, never mind like someone from very few players from South America in total.
Was a coup at the time?
Yeah, it seemed to be. All I heard about was that he would a couple of caps for Argentina under 23s. I think he played in a tournament. I think he played against Hatate in some tournament and some under 23 things. But it's nothing's happened for him. He's one of those guys. This season we have had glimpses, not of his quality, but of him. So
yes,
he has popped up in the odd game, and that's it. He
disappears.
This season
he scored last season?
No, that was last season. So he scored that away at Ross County, was it? A really nice goal, but he hasn't kicked on from there at all. It's not going to work out for him. So I think he disappears for weeks and weeks at a time, pops up on a bench, even gets brought on once, maybe a couple of times this season. It's not going to work out for him, because Greg Taylor has had his issues this season, and BERNABEI hasn't troubled the first 11 at all. So
it says all you need to know, really, doesn't it?
It goes beyond bitterly disappointing. If I thought there was any chance of him turning it around at Celtic, I would say bitterly disappointing, but I don't see it. So Terminado.
Manager number 2 that doesn't play him and doesn't even have him on the bench a lot of the time. Your tease out when you're not in the Champions League squad and you're one of 2 left backs. So that's Terminado, man. Just an utter flop. And another one you're looking at, why are we signing guys like this? Whoever it was, Ange, the recruitment team, it just didn't ever look like he was going to work out. Even when we done the scouting with him, when we had Matt O'Reilly scouted, the guy said that this guy's going to probably go for a record for Scottish football. With BERNABEI, it's just that he might play that £4 million, you want better.
Yeah.
Stephen, finish this jingle off. Du, du, du.
Cameron Carter-Vickers.
Du, du, du.
Something else.
There we go. So
he's American and scored that goal. There we go.
Cameron Carter-Vickers up next. Astonishingly brilliant. He's this, isn't he? Through everything.
Yeah, he's another one. I'm worried about him these days. I worry about Cameron Carter-Vickers because of the frequency of his injuries. However, when he does play, he's the guy. He is the rock at the heart. He is the foundation upon which everything Celtic do is built. We've maybe even become accustomed to it. We'll maybe even just get used to how brilliant Cameron Carter-Vickers is. He's a fantastic defender. The longer he's here, while he hasn't lived up to necessarily the highs of last season just yet, the longer he's here, the more kind of entrenched in my belief that he's the best defender I've ever seen at Celtic.
Can I just say I'm quite happy that he's injured?
Right.
And because I think that might put off anyone that wants to buy him.
Right. Yeah.
So they might be looking at this guy going, do we want to pay this money for a player that we will have to pay big money for, and he might not play every week, and we've got to carefully manage this injury? I think that injury might prolong his Celtic career, which, look, sorry Cam, but I'm perfectly happy to see him stay at Celtic. I think the guy's brilliant, man.
Yeah.
We just don't lose football games when he's playing. It's that simple.
Yeah, the guy's astonishingly brilliant, but the only thing is he hasn't played that much football. So can we put him as a right good teammate then? If he's for this season, has he been astonishingly brilliant? Because Matt O'Reilly has undoubtedly been that. Has Cameron Carter-Vickers? Because
he's played 10 appearances so far as we record
when he's
this.
there, he's brilliant. He's a right good teammate for me, because I think what we know of Cameron Carter-Vickers is he is the best defender I've seen at Celtic this season alone. Right good teammate, because when he plays, Celtic are solid, but he's not been astonishing brilliant because he hasn't been there.
Let me counter that though, because when Cameron Carter-Vickers comes into the team, there's no, I've been out for a few weeks, I've got to get up to speed. He's plugged in and out. Okay, we've got a solid defence, Cameron Carter-Vickers. Oh wait, he's not playing anymore. Oh, plug him back in, he's playing again. That to me is just, he can't help being out injured, and maybe is.
We've seen a couple of mistakes from him this season, maybe due to that lack of match fitness and maybe getting thrown in there. So
you think he's down? Oh, Stephen, any advance in that?
Well, I was surprised when he said he's only made 10 appearances again at the time of recording, so that means he's missed more games than he's played.
Yeah.
So that's quite bad. And as I say, I've got serious concerns about it now, because he keeps getting relatively major injuries. That's 2 or 3 he's had in the last couple of years. Remember, he had that operation. He played that heroic performance in that semi-final against Rangers and then faded, just sort of rode into the sunset for the season. Yous have got it from here. And then he was out for ages and then comes back and gets injured again. So I'm really worried about it. But
yous have got it for here, and Kobayashi's like, no, I don't. No, I don't.
That's right. It was like Kobayashi and Iwata.
Yeah. Kobayashi's like, I've got it, and ball. And everyone's like, Christ, this guy doesn't have it.
I forgot he came in for that and then lost his place again. You make a compelling case, though. You do, for it not being quite astonishingly brilliant, because he hasn't been at his absolute top level. I still consider him to be one of the fundamental parts of this Celtic team. Without him, we're just nowhere near as good.
We seriously about to say that Scales has had a better season so far than Cameron Carter-Vickers. Even when I put it like that, the answer's yes.
He has, yeah. He has.
Rangers, Feyenoord, 2 big wins. He's not played.
Yeah.
There we go. Cameron Carter-Vickers.
Right good teammate.
Right good teammate.
I fully expect him to be back up by the end of the season. But
another one I think might be sitting in this little right good teammate row. Rio Hatate.
No, bitterly disappointing.
In there from Melly.
Bitterly disappointing for me.
Really?
Yeah, came in, start the season, didn't play despite being fit. Was it against Kilmarnock at home? He had a really good game. You thought, right, let's go Rio. Then he gets injured, and that's been him. So I just out till the new year as well. Bitterly disappointing for me, because I know the levels he can get to. Nowhere near that this season. Bitterly disappointing.
No, I think you're right. I think Rio Hatate has had a bitterly disappointing season. Again, we're applying this to a lot of players in here. They have struggled with injuries, but when I cast my mind back across Rio Hatate's season, it has been disappointing in terms of, not only in terms of his injury, but in terms of his performance. I don't think he's been that great. Some total of it is really, he scored a penalty, missed a penalty here and there. I don't think he's really done much. He's nowhere near hit the heights of what we know he can do. Brendan Rodgers didn't seem to fancy him at the start of the season. Turnbull played ahead of him. He's bitterly disappointing, sadly.
That's it. And you're sitting there thinking, we'll be watching this video now. We're about 40 odd minutes in. Yeah. God, this video's long. And if you're a patron, you're watching it, you're thinking, I'm getting really good value for money here. Well, you don't need to thank us. You can thank Celtic, because we are only halfway through Celtic's enormous squad as we sit here. This is the half-time mark. And next up, James Forrest. What better way to kick off? Terminado. I don't want to spend... Look, he was Terminado in the summer. He had his testimonial. He's played far too many games. He needs to go.
Terminado. Not more to say.
Yeah, it's Terminado. I would have got rid of him a couple of years ago. He's another one who, he's not in the same category as James McCarthy, but he's another one who's got far too long a contract for the level of contribution that he has nowadays. Now, again, the argument is always about James Forrest. But what's he done in the past? All these legendary moments and these trophies that he's contributed to.
Further and further away.
But this is, giving these guys long contracts, it's something you've spoken about a number of times about the obsession with continuity. This is how we get such an enormous squad, and we can't develop it, we can't improve upon it, because we've got so many of these guys just sitting around.
Will not be on pennies either.
No, definitely not.
Jesus, James Forrest especially will be on a lot of money.
I don't have an issue with that. Like, he deserves whatever he's getting paid, because he has chipped in massively to Celtic, but at a certain point you have to decide whether it's value going forward. And
he's another pre-COVID player, but
the problem is he's played far too much this season. He's had to play. I think he's played 13 times this season. He's contributed 2 goals. That's far too much. We should never have got ourselves in that position. Terminado.
Yes.
Easy. Tomoki Iwata.
Oh, right. Well, again, this is another one it's contentious, because I'd be tempted to say, right, good teammate, but he's not played enough.
No.
I've been impressed with him.
He was one I wanted to see. I want to see Tomoki.
Same. I think he had the potential going into this season to become a key figure, not necessarily an out-and-out starter of all games, but I think he could have played more. Brendan Rodgers, for whatever reason, hasn't really fancied him up until recently. Then he starts to establish himself and gets injured. It's just the way of it with Celtic players these days, it seems to be.
Another one of that midfield conundrum that couldn't really make. I mean, he's played from time to time. He looked okay. He was another summer signing, technically. Japanese Player of the Year. Came with a sort of decent pedigree, and a player that I was looking forward to seeing. But he's not contributed in any meaningful way, really. I mean, if you take him out, his performance is out, and you played any of the other midfielders we've got, no one's shining. No one's going, I'm the guy that absolutely needs to play. I don't even know if he's any better than Bernardo has been, to be honest.
I think he has, to be honest. He's got a go at Tynecastle. I think when he's come into games, he's showed things up for Celtic. I think he's the sort of epitome of a right good teammate, but I understand that he's not played enough, and I think he's just starting to come into that. So maybe this is just a wee bit too early for him, but has he been bitterly disappointing? Maybe the amount of minutes he's played has been disappointing, but when he has played, I think he's been decent. So I'd go with right good teammate, because he's the guy we spoke about a number of weeks ago now, saying look, everybody else has had a chance, he's not, but when he has contributed, he's done well. So let's see what he can do. So
I think you're absolutely off your rocker. Honestly, I think he's been okay, but he's been. Where are we going to put David Turnbull? He's certainly not been as good as David Turnbull, and I don't like David Turnbull. And I want him to be good. He's a guy that I want to be good.
I think he's been better than David Turnbull.
He looks cool. He looks like a footballer.
Full name.
He's jacked. He's got a cool new haircut. He's got everything going for him, the guy. But he's just not. He's not played, and I went, this guy absolutely needs to play. This is the guy. This is the guy we've been crying out for that third midfield position.
Do right good teammates have to play, or do they need to contribute when they play?
I think when Hatate's injured and that midfield berth has been opened since September time, and he's only just broken into the team, I think that's...
It's a wee bit different, because Callum McGregor was always there. It's only recently Callum McGregor has been moved, so there was a space in midfield, but it wasn't that position, so you can't play to IWATA instead of Turnbull, Hatate or that. So you need to move things about, and we weren't prepared to do that. Now we are. I think right good teammate.
Stephen, where are you on this?
Well, sadly, again, we haven't left ourselves any room for just okay. We haven't. Yeah, we have okay. we haven't left ourselves any room for just the mediocre, and we have to make decisions based on that. But again, right good teammate was intended to be the not quite the top level, but good performers this season. It's the guys who've turned up this season so far at the halfway point. IWATA come into that
games so far. That's disappointing. That's not good enough for it.
And bitterly disappointing. Again, it can mean a lot of things. It can mean that he's bitterly disappointing in terms of his expectation level, which we'll have plenty of them in there. They're bitterly disappointing in terms of the fact that they've not even established themselves on the bench, or it could mean that they haven't really played any meaningful part at all. I think technically, again, it's with regret. I think technically he is bitterly disappointing, because he hasn't pushed anything. He hasn't, only until recently, a handful of games maybe.
Had we recorded this last week,
yeah,
I don't even think we'd be calling him a right good teammate.
Yeah, and maybe
I'm not going to make a big play for it, but I think it's just I like him. But
and had he established
I do like him.
Had he come into the team a wee bit earlier, we'd probably be considering something else. But I think only in recent weeks has he forced any kind of thinking on getting him into the team. And that's probably what he should have been doing all along. If he was going to make an impact, he probably should have been in the manager's thinking a wee bit earlier than this. But, you know, it's a complicated system we have here.
It's the same one Celtic use.
Yeah.
We've discussed that before. Okay.
Celtic don't have Terminado.
No, they don't have Terminado, no. They have a
new contract.
He is bitterly disappointing.
Yes.
Right, next up, Callum McGregor. Now, usually when we're recording things like this, no debate, Callum McGregor top of the class.
Yeah.
Not so sure this season, Stephen. Not so sure so far.
He's not astonishingly brilliant for me. No, he definitely isn't. Again, this is the thing with a player so well established as Callum McGregor. It's impossible to do that. We're only talking about this season. You can't just you can't just forget the previous 7 years of his incredible level of performance, or however long it's been since he fully established himself. You have to stack it up against his normal level, and it hasn't been at it. That's not to say he's been bad. I wouldn't entertain any Terminado. I don't think he's been bitterly disappointing. In some ways he has, but I think he has still been good enough. I think he's been good this season. It has been important. Stepped up on occasion. He got that brilliant goal away in recent weeks, which kicked off a win. Where was that again? That was St Johnstone, of course it was. So he has been good. So he's not astonishingly brilliant. I think he's firmly in the right good teammate bracket for me.
Yeah, fully agree on that. Even if he had been disappointing, that performance at Ibrox pushes him right into right good teammate.
Of course,
he was absolutely everywhere there. He's only right good teammate because of his own standards. He's set them, and I find it difficult with Callum McGregor because at some point we are going to have to say maybe it's time that somebody else comes in.
Because of these performances, age-based decline, or is he just having a poor season at the moment?
I think that's where you look at it and go, right, Callum McGregor should be a Celtic player into his mid-30s because he's not the Scott Brown where he's box to box, but Callum McGregor's already moved back and he's a better technical player than maybe Scott Brown was.
Brown even said that very recently himself,
so Callum McGregor could adapt to his game, but the thing with Callum McGregor is it's probably going to catch up on him more because of the amount of games Celtic play him. It is ridiculous.
Started to celebrate that again this season. I've noticed that we've gotten to the halfway point in the season and all the stats are coming out. He's already played hundreds and hundreds of minutes.
I think he's the 14th or 15th in Europe for minutes played or something like that.
But the thing with that is like that's fine and you can go up. But when you look at that list, there's other big clubs. Bruno Fernandes is, I think, top.
Yeah.
Because he's the captain and he plays. A lot of these guys are the captains. They set the tone and try and tell Callum McGregor, here, mate, you're not going to play 5 to 10 games this season. But why not? I want to play.
Yeah.
Plays for Celtic, plays for Scotland, and gives his all. Right, good teammate. I fully expect him to be back up in the top tier come the end of the season.
Scott Bain.
It's Terminado for me. Again, I apply the same logic that I have to another couple of players, but I appreciate that we do have to have a sub-keeper. I appreciate that occasionally they might have to play, but largely won't. But would I prefer someone else rather than Scott Bain? Probably. Somebody a wee bit younger, maybe.
The question is...
Why? But
the question is, when Scott Bain plays, is he any good? If Joe Hart was to have a freak pole fishing accident.
I thought you were going to say motorboat there.
So did I. I was going to say motorboat accident, right? So he has a freak pole fishing accident, he breaks a wrist. Scott Bain has to play the rest of the season. I mean, I would probably write the season off because I think the guy's no very good. I mean, we're not happy with Joe Hart, but Scott Bain is 5'7" and he frightens the life out of me and go,
what's wrong with getting injured during a game? He's got
I don't know.
He was doing Pilates the other day. He could get injured.
I saw that. He was hanging upside down inside his flat.
Scott Bain's just... I want to say right good teammate.
So did I. I wanted to say right good teammate.
Because...
No. But you're not getting right good teammate for Scott Bain. He hasn't played.
Goalkeeper's different because
you're 2 matches.
You're not.
Is he?
You're not going to play, and when you do play, you're going to come straight back out. So I think with goalkeeper, for a decent backup goalkeeper, you need to be that right good teammate, somebody that's trying to push somebody.
Didn't he remind you what this tier means again? You're using the literal Gordon Strachan meaning of somebody average who hangs about. This is meant to be the guys who've been good this season.
He's not played, so...
Correct. Terminado. He's rubbish. Bring somebody younger through. We're identifying a problem here. We moan as Celtic, we don't produce any youth players, but we're sitting here going, no, keep Stephen Welsh, keep Tony Ralston, keep Scott Bain.
Are you saying we've got the Celtic brainworms? Are you saying this is the conversations that I have?
Utter mediocrity around for absolutely no reason because they're there. Oh, why would you get rid of these guys? That's exactly what Celtic think as well.
The thing is, there is almost no opportunity for backup goalkeepers. But across world football, there's no 2 goalkeepers vying it out for position. 2 right backs, 2 left backs can vie out for position. I don't think Joe Hart's been so bad that he was ever on the verge of getting dropped where people are saying, right, we need to play Scott Bain. I get what you're saying, and I get what you're saying, and as the independent adjudicator, I'm a bit stuck because he can't be a right good teammate because that's bastardising what we create. This holy sanctity of this was handed down to us
on scrolls
by our forefathers. The way this tier list should work, and we can't bastardise it for Scott Bain.
Sacred stone tablets of the tiers in this.
He's a backup goalkeeper. If you're going to say Terminado, say it, but. It doesn't even.
But Stephen, let me put it to you that what you're accusing Melly of with a right good teammate, right? You are also taking the bitterly disappointing literally. You're taking that literally because otherwise Scott Bain would just be 3rd in the class. So you don't have to take that literally. For Scott Bain.
Terminado.
Yeah, but that's.
I want rid of him.
Why?
Because he's terrible. He's been there for about 6 years. He's been famously awful ever since. I know he doesn't play, but there's a reason for that.
Do you know what?
Joe Hart's been rubbish this season as well.
Do you know what? Get rid of him. Right, okay, Joe Hart, he's next.
Is he?
Yes, that's what ChatGPT threw up.
I'm only joking. Joe Hart's right good teammate for me. Joe Hart has been not without his problems. He is starting to creak. He's starting to get worse. He is starting to decline, but he's still popped up in big moments this season. I think he's had big saves. I mean, even against Feyenoord.
Any howlers on there? Any howlers?
Feyenoord away.
Yeah, Feyenoord away. Really poor for that free kick. But Feyenoord at home, he was popping up with big saves, and that's, again, it didn't really matter much in the grand scheme of things, but it's a big important result for the health of the club really going forward. He has had big saves here and there. Don't like his punching, don't like his passing, don't like much of that. But I think he is, as a guy who plays all the time, I don't think he's been disappointing. I think he's been fairly good. I think
don't like his passing, don't like his punching.
No, but that's it. But he has popped up with big saves. I mean, it's the kind of thing we've said about Liam Scales as well. He's not really great on the ball, but as far as defence goes, as far as defending goes, he's been excellent. Joe Hart hasn't been quite excellent, but he has done a job. So I don't think he's been bitterly disappointing, depending on his age and all that. I know that.
Am I disappointed with Scott? Am I disappointed with Joe Hart? Am I disappointed that we've got Joe Hart in goal still and we've not improved on that position? Yes.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Am I disappointed in Joe Hart's performances this season? No. They've been very middle of the road. They've been down from last season, but I'm judging them in this season. So I'm quite disappointed with Joe Hart's performances this season. He's got a couple of good saves, but he's looked quite shaky. He's flapped for a lot of things. He started to creak. I think even if Joe Hart had another year left in his contract, I think even Joe Hart himself would probably call it a day at the end of the season. And I think Joe Hart would go, do you know what? That season I was a right good teammate. I think that's what he would say. Stuck Melly.
That's a difficult one because I could even Terminado because he's leaving. You could say that as well, couldn't you? So. Because it'll be a way that we say this, but we know what Celtic are like, so I wouldn't be surprised. He has a right good teammate. Give him another year, and then there'll be a keeper behind him.
But a lot of his Terminado, he's leaving because a lot of his age. If Joe Hart was a 24-year-old goalkeeper or a 25-year-old goalkeeper that we just signed, I don't think there'd be any discussion that we need to change him at the end of the season. I think people would be quite happy with him.
It depends on how much we paid for him, because if a keeper like that was putting in the performances where at this moment in time, every corner that we get against us, I'm fearful because Joe Hart's stuck to his line or can't even get past a defender to clear it for us, but he does make some saves. So I'm torn on this one as well. He's Terminado because he's going. I think he's one big game mistake away from being Terminado, and I think that will happen this season.
He's quite a unique case though, isn't he? Because
no, goalkeepers aren't unique, mate.
But in terms of this, you could make the case that based on his performances this season, he has been a right good teammate. But also based on his performances this season, I don't want him to be here next season either.
He's disappointing.
Yeah, so you could swing wildly between right good teammate and Terminado. You can literally make those cases because of his unique set of circumstances.
Should we split the difference and put him in camp 3?
Bitterly disappointing?
Yeah.
I suppose so. Why not?
Third tier. Next up, Alistair Johnston.
Oh, I think he creeps into right good teammate just for the last month or so. I think he's got a lot better. I think the start of the season we were starting to worry about him, the injury towards the end of last season, start of this season, but I think he's started to look more solid, and I think towards the end of the Champions League he's looked good. So I think right good teammate for AJ.
I think it's difficult to disagree, but I think as the season's gone on, he's sort of grown back into his game a wee bit.
Yeah, I worried about him a wee bit this season. I worried that we would be sitting here saying bitterly disappointing all those weeks ago. But he looked, I think in the Champions League, he looked exposed. I think he looked a little bit caught unawares. I think he has adjusted extremely well to life at Celtic and adjusted perfectly to Scottish football. But I thought taking that step up to the Champions League really caught him out and left him looking a wee bit exposed in there. But in fairness to him, he seems to have adjusted to that and has stepped up really towards the end of the group stage. I think he's been good. I would certainly make the case for right good teammate in that spirit. I think he has been a good performer this season, and I think that's what we meant by that.
I think you need to give MD a bit of leeway when they have either Yang, Mikey Johnson or James Forrest ahead of them, don't you?
Correct, yes.
Right good teammate, there we go.
Yes.
Kyogo.
Oh, This is a tough one because, again, with Kyogo, I don't think the reason he's not scoring's all on him. He's not missing a barrel full of chances, is he? He's still making his runs, or maybe he's given up on the runs a wee bit. Maybe that's what Brendan Rodgers is getting a bit frustrated about. Lost his place recently. Still scores the goals, still wins Celtic games. He's right good teammate, and he's only down there again because of his own standards. I fully expect when Celtic get a couple of players back and maybe a couple of players in, we will find a way to get him fit and firing again. Well, firing again because he is fit. So
17 appearances, 6 goals at time of recording, Stephen.
Well, it's more than that in all competitions. I think he's got about 9 goals this season so far at the time of recording. But he's still scoring. But again, he's
blunted, isn't he?
Yeah.
1 and 2, and that's not as good.
We have made the point here that I don't think it's a Kyogo problem. I really, if I sensed that he was sort of switching off a little bit, then I would probably be able to identify that. It would be dead obvious, but you can see him when you go to the games. You can see him still making those runs. So I can't disagree with anything you've said, Mel. I think Kyogo, he hasn't been astonishingly brilliant, not to the levels of previous seasons, but this season he has been good. I think he's been good and has still scored goals, 2 Champions League goals as well, and that's not nothing for a Celtic striker. That's not something that...
When at Ibrox.
Yeah, of course. So most certainly good, but unfortunately doesn't quite break through into astonishingly brilliant, just based on his own standards he's previously set.
Right, good team. I think that's bang on. I think it's fair enough. I think he'd agree. I think when he watches us, he will agree. Thiago Odin home. Honestly, another summer signing who just hasn't broken through in any meaningful way. Yeah,
well, for that reason, it's an easy bitterly disappointing. I know that's harsh to say about a quite young player, but again, we're looking at this as have you come into this club and forced anyone to really consider you as part of the team, to really adjust things to make sure, right, this guy's so good, we need to make sure he's in the team more often, and it hasn't happened. And I don't know what the plan for that would have been, whether he'd been playing more by now or whether Brendan Rodgers thinks, no, this is perfectly normal, we're hardly ever playing him, we're developing him behind the scenes. Truth is, we don't really see any of that. Has come in, he's looked good, he's looked a good, decent enough player, technically gifted player, made a bit of a mess of his Champions League, and from memory, I know he was suspended after he was sent off against Feyenoord, but I don't think he's featured again. So I think it was maybe just sort of, right, you've had your go at that. We'll maybe try again next season. But it's an easy, bitterly disappointing for me. In terms of a summer signing, there's a lot of them in here. Nah.
I think it's a strange thing because I think a lot of these players in the team could benefit with guys leaving. Because I don't know if that logic stacks up, but take IWATA and home, they could probably do a lot better if they were 3rd or 4th and 5th choice central midfield. If you got rid of David Turnbull, if you get rid of Bernardo, and your backup midfielders were Thiago and IWATA, then you're probably thinking that's a pretty solid get-up.
Is that not just the same as Jota's away, so my Abada bumps up? Because they've all been fit while these guys have been playing.
The other guys aren't any, but Turnbull and Bernardo aren't necessarily that much better.
Yeah, but
these guys.
So is that not even worse because these guys can't overtake them in the team?
Potentially.
So with Odin Thiago home, probably best you didn't pick that name, mate. I think it's look, we're in December now. There has been a lot of Celtic games, and I can remember a couple of touches here and there. Yeah. And when he has started, he's been hooked at half time on a couple of occasions.
True. Yeah.
I wouldn't have even mentioned the Champions League thing. Out with the Champions League thing, it's bitterly disappointing. I still don't know where he's going to fit in at Celtic. He might go on to that, but another
guy,
guy,
young players. Is he not someone who's 20?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, but him, LAGERBIELKE, all these guys we are bringing in, Yang, all played first team football, then come to Celtic and they're getting too many games. No.
Yeah,
that's not that. You want to play football, you want to be a first team player. So bitterly disappointing, but again, I still think there could be a player in there, but we need to see something soon.
I don't want to influence you in any way, right? So obviously, I'm not here to make your minds up. I'm just here to give you the names and then we talk it out. So next on the list is Mikey Terminado Johnston. Been watching a lot of Darren Brown recently. Subtle sort of.
Right, okay. Gee, let me think. Oh, again, it's with sadness. I have to agree with that. What you didn't say there.
Is there any sadness?
I don't want to be the whipping boy for Mikey Johnson, but part of me is like he's. It's weird how, as a fan, you just have different perceptions of players based on who knows what. So I look at Mikey Johnson and I get pissed off at him because there I see a player who has had every opportunity at Celtic, who is only 24, although it's not young. We can debate that sort of senseless point, but he's had every opportunity to do well at Celtic. He saw plenty of players come and go. He's still at the club. He was given a contract. He was sent on loan to get game time. He comes back and he's still kind of getting the Celtic team. And I'm like, you're quickly becoming one of these bit of waste. Do you know what I mean? It's wasted opportunity with Mikey Johnson. But people, other Celtic players in my lifetime have been hammered with that. Aidan McGeady still gets hammered with that. And he had a much better career than Mikey Johnson ever had. Yeah. There's loads of guys that get wasted, that hammered with this wasted potential. But Mikey Johnson's like seemingly immune from it because people think he's young at all times. Yeah,
it's a very easy terminado for me based on the fact that it doesn't influence anything. It doesn't really contribute anything. The one tinge of sadness I have about it is that I really like the idea of Mikey Johnson. We all like that. You know, a Celtic born and bred, developed, you know, from a very young age winger. It's what it's supposed to be all about.
Yeah, but one of our trademarks of the club.
But there's no case to be made for Mikey Johnson needing more chances. The idea that he hasn't had a chance in 6 or 7 years around the first team setup. We've done everything now. Put him out on loan. He needs to go out on loan to get game time. We've done that.
Yeah.
Extended his contract, brought him back in. Several managers. We've done it all, and it's not worked. Nothing. He's not going to get better. So it's an easy terminado for the fact that I don't think he's ever going to contribute in any meaningful way for Celtic. But it is with regret that it's finally come to this. Now, I sit here in December 2023 talking about Mikey Johnson, which is ridiculous because he should have been gone ages ago.
He made his debut in May 2017.
Right, yeah.
That's when he made his Celtic debut. So how long ago is that?
Well, almost 7 years. 6.5 years. I know it's amazing.
I knew how long it was, by the way. I was doing that for effect.
Yeah, so you'll still get people saying, no, I would keep him, he needs a run of games. I'm sure.
I mean, we're talking about a guy who's he made his debut almost 7 years ago.
I don't think that even exists
Probably
anymore.
not. The reason I remember specifically people saying that before he went on loan, because I was saying at the time, no, look, just get rid of him, just cut our losses. This is ridiculous. Now, it's been too long, and people say, no, we can't let him go. He needs a run of games. And I thought, right, okay, we'll, as I said previously, we've done that now. He's had the run of games. He's had the loan away. This magic bullet that everyone thinks, put him out on loan, he'll come back, this amazing player. He's gone out on loan and come back exactly the same as he ever was.
He has had 7 years at this club to become a first-team player, and he's not managed it. And I know he's been injured, and I know blah, 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 but there are players who we have signed and let go in a year. There are players who we signed last year. We just had Kobayashi signed last January, and we're all in agreement he should probably go this year.
Yeah.
Whereas Mikey Johnson gets 7? 7?
I know.
It's insane.
Almost 100 appearances by this point, surely.
Aye.
Yeah.
So, and based on this season alone, that is another position, that right wing position, that has been there for anyone who wants it. Because Abada's been injured, Jota left, Maeda got injured, Yang, we'll get him in a minute, and Mikey Johnson couldn't even make it that his own up until about a fortnight before we sat down to record this. If we recorded this, he's another one. If we recorded this 2 weeks ago, we'd probably not be talking about Mikey Johnson in any capacity other than get out.
No, and it's again shows where we are and why we're doing this now, that Mikey Johnson's in there and we're still talking about this squad like this, like keeping guys like that around. He needs to go for himself as well. He just needs to go and play football. It's not going to happen for him at Celtic. He's had chances this season, and even then, every time he plays, the manager's coming out and telling a 24-year-old what more he needs to do.
Yeah,
and it's no on anymore. So I terminado. Wish it had it worked. It hasn't. Just go and play football somewhere else, man.
Marco Tilio, another one who has made his debut a long time ago. I think 2019 he made his professional debut. So he's been playing football now for quite a while. He's 22. Came over in the summer. has failed to make any impact at all at Celtic.
Couple of subs that we're looking at.
One
Yeah, a couple
sub,
of
two subs,
two
two sub appearances by the time we get round to this. I mean, no Terminado because that's not a realistic prospect. But again, another player in a position where we've needed help, who has just been completely unable to make it his own.
Far too early for Terminado, but I think in terms of the profile of the player, you know, again, he's not that young, 22. I do appreciate that, much like Tom Rogic, he has come from the other side of the world, and you have to give those allowances to adjust to a completely new way of life at a relatively young age. But even still, for Brendan Rodgers to be coming out and heavily implying that he's just not, he's not at the standard, not the standard in terms of his technical ability, but in terms of his intensity, in terms of his work rate, in terms of all that stuff. Similar to the Mikey Johnson thing, I suppose. It's easily bitterly disappointing because this is a guy who we haven't plucked at 15 out of some sort of relative obscurity. He's played it, albeit I don't know how good a level the top level in Australia is, but it is top flight football somewhere. A wee bit of international recognition.
There was chat about this in the Discord, and a point was put: Jason Cummings was the top scorer.
Right? Okay, yeah, yeah. Well, that's a pretty good indication, isn't it? So, but what I mean is that while it might not be like, right, just plug him in or take him out of that and plug him straight into Celtic because that's exactly the same level. He is a reasonably well established footballer at this point, 22 years old or so.
Played international, full international.
Yeah, he made it to a World Cup squad, didn't he? But didn't play. So for all those reasons, he should have been a lot better by now. I mean, if not, well, that's another thing. I nearly said.
What are you saying is there's, as far as Tilio's concerned, there's not an awful lot there to develop. You have arrived as a footballer and you're not playing football.
Yeah, and the problem is, as we've established, there's numerous problems at right wing, and he not only has he not taken his chance to establish himself, he has become part of that problem rather than a solution to it. So that at any point, it's like the midfield thing you've been talking about tonight. No one's grabbed it. Hatate's been injured all season. Abada's been injured all season as well. None of these right wingers have looked in any way impressive. There's 5 of them or so. So there's Mikey Johnson, James Forrest, Abada. Well, Abada's been injured. Yang, Tilio, all these guys could have played. Apart from Abada, all these guys could have grabbed that chance, and none of them have, and Tilio's included.
What a mess this squad is.
Can I offer you a Terminado? I mean,
I would have had it. He only signed this summer.
Yeah, so
this time next year, I'll probably give you a Terminado.
I think he'll get the season, but we've got to December. He's came on in 2 sub appearances very late on when we've really had nothing else. Brendan Rodgers came out and said he only got on due to injuries. I mean, Brendan Rodgers came out and said not a lot about the guy.
Cheeky that though, because they did throw him on in the 94th minute trying to rescue a game. It's not like to give him a run at.
Yeah, Yang pulled up injured, so I think that was the only reason he got on. But I think when you're looking at him, right, Brendan Rodgers has come out and said he was way off it. He was injured, then he was way off it, then he only got into the squad due to an injury, comes back out, he's not in the Champions League squad.
Well, I suppose the question is, what is it?
When we love the idea, I think winger, left-footed, love to see him come in, maybe quite like Patrick Roberts, maybe it'd be good, but he's played, 15 minutes more than KWON?
Yeah, I think that... I
when you put it like that.
I think that the issue is, what is it we're trying to develop here? Is it a mindset? Is it an attitude? Is it physicality? I mean, he's very slight. He came on and I'm like, this is my major beef with Celtic at the moment. We're starting to look like a very unusual team, even compared to, for talking sake, Rangers, where we're signing players of a physical profile that I don't really see playing in any other top club. And Tilio's exactly that. You know, and if what we're dealing with Tilio is a player who's really good in the ball, lacks athleticism, perhaps isn't he the best trainer? I don't mean that as a slight. I mean, he's not got the mentality, the focus, and the mindset that Callum McGregor has, that Matt O'Reilly has, that the top guys at the club do. He doesn't have that, but he's good with the ball at his feet. Then to me that sounds like a player that belongs in the A-League, not in a Brendan Rodgers Celtic team.
Yeah, and I think
that's Jason Cummings.
I love the idea of him. I think we got excited, we had him scouted and that, but then watching him in the game for the brief time he was on, Brendan Rodgers had to whistle over to him and tell him to press a guy. We've seen this before with Boricta, like it's not going to work out.
Shved.
Yeah, Shved, there's been loads that if you're not going to at least put the work in, that's the bottom line. That's the one thing you need to do, and then you need to be good enough. if he's not going to put the work in, then I don't see it working out. I love the idea of him, but I can honestly, if you push or shove, you could give it either way. But absolutely disappointed with the guy. But also, if you said Terminado, I can't really disagree.
Well, do you know what? Melly's charming Terminado for me as well.
I wouldn't entertain Terminado just yet because I just hold on to that slim hope that he might play at some point. I think
He
it's
might grow half a foot and
yeah,
put on freestone
it's early for that. But I think it was telling about a lot of these players that we're having the debates over and we're humming and hawing about whether they're this category or that category. I think there are a lot of them where you wouldn't miss them. See if they were to just go. If Brendan Rodgers was to say Terminado with a lot of them, Mikey Johnson's one, that Tilio's another, KWON. There's so many of them, but you just wouldn't miss them altogether. You make the odd case for, but it might be okay. It might be okay eventually, but would you care if they all just left tomorrow?
Well, this is a more telling thing, and we might rectify it with this next player's name. But of all the signings in the summer we've got right now, not one of them is top of the class. And I'm not sure until I review it how many of them are seeking in the second.
Right.
But next up, we've got Lewis Palma, who I think Lewis Palma's an oddity for me. He's a bit of an oddity for me. He's good without being exciting. He's not a very exciting footballer to watch. For me personally, he's an unusual winger. He's quite slow, but there's no denying he's contributing. He's chipping in with goals or some good play.
A goal every other game or so far.
Yeah.
Big goals. A few of them penalties, but he scored in the Champions League. So I think that his contribution has been significant so far. I know that there are slight misgivings about whether he's going to be good enough going forward. He's not the most dynamic when it comes to pressing. He's not the most energetic getting involved in defensive work.
Dynamic's generous as well.
Yeah, so he does have things to work on. Whether that's ever going to improve, I don't know. Because again, we're not dealing with a young player here, but we're talking about a guy who could be coached into a better player. I don't think he's going to develop into one, but he could be honed into a good player. But his contribution so far this season, very good. I think in terms of his goals, to have come in, hit the ground running straight away and have almost scored in every home Champions League game in a group stage, it's pretty good. If it wasn't for Maeda's laces, he would have scored in every home game. So I think he's been very good. Bordering on, is astonishingly brilliant, hysterical.
Yeah, I think
is it
so.
slightly?
Yeah.
I thought so. I thought it was. I was getting carried away, but I do appreciate his contribution so far this season. But if that's the case, if I'm floating off into the unrealistic with astonishingly brilliant, he's an easy, good teammate for me.
I think he slotted right in there for me. Melly, happy at that?
I think I don't think you can put him in the top tier, but he didn't come in straight away. There was games he was on the bench, and why is this guy not playing? He came in late in the window. Brendan Rodgers has said there's more to come from him. He's also shouted at him a lot for his pressing and his tracking back. So there is a player in there, but I kind of feel like he's Scott Sinclair, but Scott Sinclair in season 2, where he started the season, didn't have the same impact as his first season, and then towards the end of the season wasn't playing.
Say season more probably.
Cal McGregor was playing there at the end of the season. So I think with Lewis Palma's goals and assists have been, you can't deny that, but I still think he's all-round play. There's so much more he could be doing, and it's not as if I'm wanting to take on players more. I'm just wanting him to work harder and have more influence in the game.
That's big.
I think he's, like I said, he was Instagrammy recently, and I stand by it. I think he's there for the big moments, but the rest of it, if he scores a goal, I think that's him. I'll be all right today. That's not enough. That's not enough, and especially for him as well, he'd probably want to go beyond Celtic. So for him to get there, he needs to raise his game. So
Real Madrid was the chat, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He wanted to play for Real Madrid one day.
I think, as much as I admire a bit of confidence, was it KWON?
He was off to the Bundesliga, wasn't he?
He was off to the Bundesliga.
After being our best player.
Drives to training, listen to the Champions League anthem look, play ball first and then let's talk.
They're all a bit high performance podcasts, aren't they? Really?
Yeah, no, I don't
believe
know.
it to see it.
I don't know
Hear
where
it to see it.
I don't know where we're getting these guys from. Listen, a bit of an enigma. Nearly, or in fact, he might have at the time we got this surpassed Kyogo numbers in terms of minutes per goal. But again, he's just one of these players for me. Just doesn't look like the finished article. Now, that's not to say he won't get there. He's an impressive player. His work rate talking about Palma's work rate, I don't think you can criticise O's work rate. He works really hard, strong, looks after himself, looks after his body, Brendan Rodgers says, the way he trains, the way he eats, everything's perfect. This guy is a specimen. And I think he's got all the attributes to go on and be a good Celtic player.
So Joe just popped into my head there. You'll know what I'm talking about.
Over him.
No, oh yeah, definitely that. But, over him, very fantastic body. But the bit in Casino Royale when Le Chiffre says that to Bond, wow, you really looked after your body.
Battering him in the stones, the chair, the whole cut of it.
I pictured that, unfortunately. Yeah.
So from that to O, Melee.
I think if Kyogo was firing on all cylinders, it would be maybe right good teammate, because like, he's back up last season. You thought, do you know what? Come in instead of Giakoumakis. There's no denying Kyogo, but this season there has been a bit of denying Kyogo. Always got opportunities to play. He scored in some games, and then you think, right, is this it? And then it doesn't quite come. I'm torn between right good teammate and bitterly disappointing, because I don't know if he's been bitterly disappointing, because I don't think he's ever going to be that player that comes in, but when he does come in he scores, but then also he misses chances when Celtic need goals. Right good teammate, but just like clinging on by his fingernails in there.
I think that's a good case. I think you've made sense there. I think the comparison to Giakoumakis is unavoidable, and it's an easy comparison to make because that's basically the guy he replaced. That's not his own fault, but I think maybe sometimes we're guilty of maybe over romanticising Giakoumakis' performances because
wanted to leave me.
Yeah, that's definitely true. But he scored more goals than O, but he also missed a lot of chances as well. So I think there's, because we now pile all that pressure onto O, we maybe forget, or some people forget, that Giakoumakis was flawed at the very least as well. So for that reason, O's good to have around. I think I like O. He scores goals. He's never going to be better than Kyogo. But when he comes in, I don't think he looks completely out of place. Of course, he misses chances, but I don't think we're going to get a guy who doesn't.
And it's a bit symptomatic of the way Celtic are playing. It's not as if he's missing chance after chance, because we're not really creating them. And both strikers are looking a bit isolated a lot this season.
Yeah, so I agree with Mel. I think he's a right good teammate.
Easy. Right good teammate for me as well. Maeda.
Maeda... Funnily enough, I was just thinking about him recently, and he's only scored 2 at the time of recording. He's only scored 2 goals this season, and for a wide forward at Celtic, that's not great, is it? But you do apply the context that Maeda, it's not really his thing.
No.
He's also a very, very important player,
and he's one who did specifically talk about the adjustment.
Right,
he was
of
in
course,
earlier this
right.
season. He was talking about the adjustment in his game that he's having to make between.
Jamie mentions a specific skill set a lot when he's talking about players. Maeda is the complete embodiment of that, and when he's not there, you really see what you miss out on, because it's not just the work ethic and the sheer pressing that he puts in. It raises everybody else, because if you're not behind him or you're not near him, it's so glaring because of the work he puts in. If he was fit, he'd be playing every week right now.
It's so important to the way Celtic want to play, not just the way Ange wants to play, but even, like, see when we're playing against these tight defences, they just want to play the ball long. So see if he was playing against Kelly, half these players wouldn't even have a chance to get their pass off, get it played long, because he's on top of them right away and they just have to get rid of it quick. So he's a crucial player for Celtic.
Yeah.
It's just he's injured.
And in previous games and occasions and seasons, he's one of the first names in the team sheet against Rangers as well, for the fact that he completely nullifies one of their biggest threats going forward. So Maeda is a very important player. So he's an easy, right good teammate for me. I don't think he can go to astonishingly brilliant, because I do have that wee asterisk next to his name where I want to be scoring more goals. I want to have that wee bit more quality in front of goal. Maybe not waste quite so many crosses. But those are quibbles I have rather than major concerns. So I think overall, easy, right good teammate.
Next up, Yang. Get him out of my club. Get him out of my club.
Oh, you've changed your tune.
Oh, you're right. You're right. I've changed my tune.
Several times, but through no fault of your own. No,
the guy is absolutely honking. He is. He goes for World Cup winner to competition winner, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the emotional roller coaster that Yang's got me on. He's never going to make it. He's never, ever going to be any sort of footballer for Celtic. Terminado, just get rid of him. That's it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a straight Terminado because he's come in, he's looked quite good at times, quite exciting, but projecting forward, based on his performances this season, he is a Terminado because I don't see him ever getting any better. I don't ever see him establishing himself as a Celtic player, and that's formed quite a lot of my arguments tonight when we're talking about...
Shouldn't he even be signing guys like
nah,
that?
I know. Again, just inexplicable view of what constitutes a young player at Celtic and in Scotland. We should be getting guys significantly younger than that if the plan is to let them get better. Plucking a guy who's 22 or so out of...
He's not younger than that, is he?
No, is he 20, 21?
He's 21.
21, right, okay. So plucking a guy like that out of... the
relegation fodder.
Yeah, so relegation fodder in Korea is not the way that we should do this plan if such a thing exists. So nah, he's Terminado. He's never going to be good enough. He will have the odd flash here and there. He will have the odd moment, like many Celtic players will. But we've had plenty of players in the past, dozens, hundreds of players probably, who have scored the odd goal here and there for Celtic who haven't been good enough. So Yang's another one of them.
Can I shock you? No, I can't. Terminado. Glad that from the start I was like, I'm really not sure on this guy. I'm really not sure. Like you, Stephen, with Bowling Goalie, just as when I first seen him, like, I can't see how this becomes a footballer for Celtic. And look, 21 is quite young, but he's been playing football before he got to Celtic. That he's a guy like, all right, he's young, but we've seen him play in Scotland. We've seen him now play in the Champions League, and in the Champions League, he was wee-eyed. It was brutal watching, man, and it got to the point where I couldn't even be angry at him. I was just, I hope he gets through this game, man.
He's played in 14 matches for Celtic, which is an astonishing number of games, an astonishing number of minutes for a guy who just doesn't have it. I was on the podcast at the start when I first saw him, one of his first games, I was like, I actually quite like the look of this guy. He might have something about him, but as the weeks have gone on, he's put in some serious horror shows. He doesn't.
It's the work rate in that.
I know, he just doesn't look as if he's got anything about him, and it's just Celtic. I've completely changed my position recently, and guys like him, guys like TILIO, guys like KWON, the jury's out on most of the summer. We just shouldn't even be entertaining this sort of signing. We're not a poor club. We're no skint. We don't need to. What is the most you could ever hope to sell Yang for? Why is it worth the time and effort? And you hope to buy him for how much did we pay for him?
$2 million or
$2 million. You hope they turn him into what? £6 or £12 million? No chance.
No,
I mean, you can tell just by looking at the guy.
I hadn't even considered that because we talk about bringing in the young players, but that's part A. Then presumably part C or whatever is sell them for 25 million, and part B is who knows what happens in there to lead us to selling that guy for any kind of profit whatsoever.
He doesn't even look like a Kilmarnock player. He doesn't look like a Hearts player. He's at no level whatsoever. And Terminado, actually, this is the final player on the list. Can you guess who I've missed out?
No.
There you go. That says all you need to know about David Turnbull. For me, Terminado. I don't care. Don't bore me with your stories about how many goals David Turnbull scored. David Turnbull comes on, he's too slow, he's too one-footed. He's another one who we need to talk about work rate. He's good at getting himself a goal, but that's about it. He'll come in and he'll do the thing where he takes a shot or a free kick from outside the box and it ends up in the back of the net. Cool trick, David. Not for me.
No, I think with Turnbull, we're, 3 full years? Is this his 4th season?
Must be, yeah.
Has he improved?
Well, that's it. I can't really think that was the David Turnbull game. Yes, he has scored goals in games, but he doesn't dominate games. And he's an attacking midfielder, but I'm looking for so much more. Yes, he might be one of the top goal scorers, but it's no enough. And again, like him, Scales, these guys that are coming, like, oh, maybe we need to give them a new contract. To protect what? Protect what? Is this another guy that we're going to give a new contract and sell for 5-6 million in 2 years? No, it's no quite happened from him. It doesn't mean he's a bad player, if anything, but just Celtic, where we are right now, we want better, but where we are right now, you're maybe thinking, oh, maybe we could keep him. No, because if we do, we'll name him in 2 years' time, along with all the other guys we're naming right now. Like, do we keep him? Do we let him go? Just cut your losses. He's not even like a homegrown player that you get that thing that he can help you in the Champions League. Terminado, even if in January, just get him out, because then hopefully it means we'll bring somebody else in.
I'm starting to try and think more about, when I'm looking at these Celtic players, what are they doing that we don't see? You know, like everyone likes Liam Scales because he's a good tackler. However, if you took Liam Scales out and plugged in NAWROCKI, who's a better passer of the ball, would Celtic function better? And the answer's probably yes.
Yeah.
Right? But Brendan Rodgers probably sees that more than me, and he's made his decision. To be honest, some of the decisions Brendan Rodgers has made about selection this season, the fact that Phillips has played so many games, is a bit of a mystery to us. So we can sort of, I feel we're in safe ground questioning Brendan Rodgers' selections. But it's the same with David Turnbull. Yes, he scores these goals, and I was being hilarious before, and I think I think everyone would agree he scores all these goals. But what else would we see if we had a better midfielder in there? And we've seen it from time to time with Callum McGregor push forward. The fact that David Turnbull is barely getting the shout now, even from Brendan, shows Brendan doesn't really value David's contribution that much. He said he wouldn't lose sleep if David Turnbull didn't sign a new contract, which tells you all you need to know. So I think it's time for, and another thing as well, he's no kicked on. If you look at David Turnbull's peers, if you look at the likes of the McGinns, even the McGregors, and I know McGregor's a lot older than David Turnbull, but
Ryan Christie,
if you look at his peers in the Scotland team, everyone's getting better and better, and they're sort of leaving David Turnbull behind a wee bit, and maybe a fresh start will do him. We've got Ryan Christie set the header like recently for Bournemouth down there. Everyone really likes him. So maybe a change of scenery is probably best for all parties.
a new position for Ryan Christie as well. He's playing as a sort of deep flying midfielder these days rather than an attacking one. Yeah, David Turnbull, I mean, he has scored goals this season. I think he's got 7 or so, or the odd penalty in there. One thing he's definitely good at. But again, it becomes about this squad management thing. Do I want David Turnbull in my squad when he's 27, 28, 29? No, is the answer to that. So that I wouldn't entertain any idea of giving him a new contract. So it's Terminado for me. I appreciate that he has, his time at Celtic has been turbulent. He's another one, kind of like Stephen Welsh, only started to establish himself in one of the worst seasons, well, the worst season anyone
can remember. Young Player of the Year.
Yeah. And then
there's been that's yours. No one can take that away from me.
That's right. No one goes home empty-handed in this game. But
nobody goes home empty-handed in the game of playing for Celtic.
So he injuries as well. So his time has been very turbulent. I do appreciate that he has come up with big moments over the time. This season he has been decent. He has scored goals. But going forward, based on his performances this season, it's definitely Terminado. Again, it's like we simply cannot continue to just keep all the players because they're okay to have around. But you know, you can sometimes call upon them.
Contracts up at the end of the season, you get some money for them in January.
Yeah, and it's a fear thing, I think, with Celtic as well. It's like why would we take a chance and trying to refresh the squad when we've got all these guys just hanging about? You know, they're right good teammates in the traditional sense of the term. Just keep them all. So no, we need to start moving on from guys like David Turnbull, and it starts now. Terminado.
And on that, we shall wrap up the squad assessment. I think you'll agree when you look at this list here, the graphic that'll be put up, that 2 players have made the astonishingly brilliant.
Is that right too?
One is Matt O'Reilly, the other's Liam Scales. That's I think that's fairly accurate. That's a reflection of how well the Celtic squad are performing at this halfway-ish mark. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for watching. Of course, thank you so much to everyone that supports us on Patreon. Patreon.com/20minutetims. Thank you.